The conflict between US, Israel and Iran has now outlived over 100 days, and the repercussions are being witnessed across the globe. While the US President Donald Trump is keeping the globe edgy, repeatedly claiming that he's close to a deal, the ground reality seems much different, with a fragile ceasefire repeatedly being broken from both sides. And over the past week, there have been several serious engagements between the two sides militarily. Now, while this conflict had been impacting India's energy crisis, it has now also started moving towards impacting a major arena, that is India's foreign policy. And why? Because over the past 4 days, two such incidents have occurred, which now possibly would also lead to having an impact on US-India equations, given the fact that the US military has disabled and later attacked two oil tankers which had all Indian crew. And to understand the repercussions of these significant incidents, I have with me somebody who has had an enviable diplomat career. I have with me former Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, who has served possibly in nations where a list, if it is looked at, the diplomats would envy the same and would want to serve in every one of those nations. He's happened to be spending time in Russia, in Mongolia, in the Middle East, in the US. So he is somebody who can bring into a conversation the best of possibly the entire world. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for giving your precious time. Two significant developments on Monday. One of the Palau flagged oil tankers disabled by the US military. All crew safe thanks to the Omani authorities and the coordination with the MRCC in India. Within just 2 days, and another oil tanker, again all Indian crew, attacked by the US military, and 3 of our Indian seafarers died. Significant developments. How do you view them?
Well, they're very unfortunate, to say the least. Number one, as we know, this war has already gone beyond 100 days. In fact, I was quite hopeful that this would be known as a 100-day war. But unfortunately, the madness continues on all sides, and we see the escalation. They are continuing with both. There is a blockade which has been done by the Iranians, and then there has been further blockade by the United States.
Right.
And there is a continuous pressure by the United States on Iranians to come to terms. The fact remains is that today perhaps the Iranians are also a bit overestimating their power.
Right.
And continuing to challenge the United States, and both sides have actually changed their goalposts in this. Initially, I believe, like everybody else, the United States really had no clear objectives in mind, starting with regime change and this, that, and finally it comes to Strait of Hormuz.
And now oil.
And now oil. So you have seen his statement, and I have written about it also. So, unfortunate part is that about 20% of the global trade goes through it, which is now, with the disruption, has impacted nearly the whole world and mostly the Asia. At the same time, India's 85% trade goes through this.
True.
So it has a direct impact on our economic health as well. But what we are seeing is that these attacks on the ships, commercial shipping, which have nothing to do with the war.
True.
And instead of just stopping them or trying to destabilize in a different way, what the countries are doing are attacking these ships. And as you mentioned in the first one, we had 2 Indians have been killed, or 3 are missing. So 2 have been confirmed dead, I believe. And the third one is
the
also
third
dead.
one has also been confirmed dead.
So 21 people were saved, and they have been taken to Oman and will be brought back. And while this was happening, only yesterday again, another ship has been hit. And that is quite sad. And that's why the Government of India, Ministry of External Affairs, called the Charge d'Affaires of the United States
James Meade,
and expressed its complete disapproval of these kind of acts. While the United States remains our major global comprehensive strategic partner, but in the past we are seeing its actions are not something that is commensurate with the strategic dimension of our relationship. Because being a great friend or a close friend of the current administration is somehow becoming a dangerous proposition. And I think that there's something, so I believe that this has created a lot of challenge for the both sides to deal with it, while we have other major issues to handle the process.
Sir, but this has been the first incident over the past, at least in 2 years, where India has had to summon a US diplomat,
Yes.
and one of the topmost diplomats. Remember, the US ambassador was not here; he was in,
Yes.
he was abroad, which is, I think he possibly averted a possibility of being
Yes,
summoned by the
right.
Indian government, which could have been even more embarrassing.
Correct.
Now, at the moment, do you see this incident having a major impact on the US-India relations? Because given the fact that we are also negotiating a very tricky trade deal, the US delegation was just in India about 3 days back. It has, again, the both sides have been unable to come to a deal and have not been able to sign it so far, despite the negotiations going on for almost a year. Do you see this impacting that aspect as well?
Well, I don't think it will directly impact the trade deal, because trade deal itself has too many complications.
True.
And that's the reason it has not been agreed to, because India, as the Americans have often admitted, and so have the Europeans, that are difficult nut to crack. And
Tough negotiators.
Tough negotiators. So we hope that we will get to protect our own national interest while discussing this deal and arriving at. So I don't think India is in a great hurry for the deal as it is. But if we want to have a deal, it should be equitable. As far as this particular thing is concerned, these incidents in which the Indians are involved, and ironically, there are like large number of Indians who are the mariners, and most of the shipping industry employs very many Indians. So obviously, whenever we have such incidents, the Indians, we have lost the maximum number of men.
True.
In this
conflict,
in this war. I mean, 100 years is India's only country, I believe, which has lost. And apart from Iran, of course, whose ship was sunk by the Americans. So there have been many incidents in which our interests have collided now. India's foreign policy is very much geared to protecting its own citizens anywhere in the world. And that is one of our major concerns, because we have about 10 million Indians who are based in the Middle East. Now their safety and security becomes increasingly important. And Indian Ocean essentially is where India is a resident power.
True.
So it is somehow challenging India's sovereignty in the ocean. It is our ocean, and we have been protecting, we are providing safe passage to the commercial shipping everywhere, wherever we can. And then your own ships, or the people who are manning the ships, come under fire from a friendly country, at least avowedly. So I think that is something that is quite disappointing.
Sir, if I may just bring in the observations, comments made by the US authorities, the CENTCOM says that these oil tankers, which were Palau flag, both of them, were trying to head towards the Iranian ports. And they're also claiming that, they were defying the directions of the US authorities repeatedly. Now, in these kind of situations, what mariners tell me is that it is not as easy as the situation seems to be. In fact, discussions go on at length between the two parties, and only after discussions does a ship make a move. So in that backdrop, do you think that, of course we know that India has restarted purchasing Iranian oil, India has admitted to it also, and the US had in fact itself given a waiver to Iranian oil that was on ships to ensure some oil supply in the market. But do you think that this has now started impacting India's energy interests as well? Because we need cheaper oil, and the US has been attempting to impose of sorts the Venezuelan oil on us. But Venezuela is 45 days at a distance, and here from Middle East we can get oil within just 6 days of voyage. So do you think this has started impacting our energy interests also now?
No, it has been actually impacted from day one, and Prime Minister himself has said it. I mean, when he addressed the nation, and initially the way this has been calibrated, the whole thing. So obviously, I mean, we have depended a great deal on the gas and as well as crude oil. No doubt in this we have bought the 5 million barrels which was floating by, I think, Reliance refineries bought that. We're also buying about 39-40% back from Russia, which is also not very close, but we are doing that. We are buying from Brazil, we are buying from Argentina, we are buying from United States, as well as Venezuela. Their acting president was here recently also, and has showed. In fact, you are aware that even before all that tamasha happened there in Venezuela with their former president. India had invested a great deal in the Venezuelan
Since 2008,
oil. So we have been doing it. Our refineries are geared to do that. But no doubt, I mean, these are 45 days. But at the same time, seeing the fragility and the volatility of the region as well as those of choke points like the Strait of Hormuz, or Bab al-Mandab or other straits, it is very important to diversify your resources. Supply chains have to be immunized from these kind of frequent disruptions. So maybe oil will be expensive if you get it from elsewhere, but at the end of the day, Cape of Good Hope, that would become your major artery to get the oil, while you are continuing to do your own other diversification mechanisms. So it is true, but for us, I always maintain that West Asia is actually an existential geography for us. It is the nearest to us.
True.
And that's why now we are talking of the Oman Gujarat pipeline.
Right.
We are under the IMEC corridor from Fujairah to Gujarat or Bombay ports. We are thinking of these pipelines, which is part of the IMEC corridor. So all those things are continuing now. Not only us, every country is trying to find some via media exactly how to do that.
Right. But sir, can we say that these incidents over the past 4 days especially have exposed the fragility of the US-India equations? Although there has been a very so-called successful visit by the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was here for intrinsically a reset of ties between the two countries. But given the fact that the US military has now directly attacked a ship which had all Indian crew, and it has been confirmed now that it is very difficult for a navy as huge as US to not know that these are all Indian seafarers. So does that not sort of lead to a sense of mistrust towards the US on the Indian side?
There is a tremendous mistrust. And it's not only today it has happened. I mean, we have seen it in recent times, the way things have gone on, the kind of public domain we have had, the exchanges that have taken place, the kind of tariff sanctions. India was singled out for 50% of the tariffs in a very unjustified, irrational manner. So it is not something that has happened just overnight. But this definitely adds to the fragility of the whole thing. And that is why now we'll have to work out with the Americans clearly. And it is, I agree with you totally. Not only Americans, if the Iranians hit something or anybody else, they know very well who's there.
Absolutely.
And these things, and I mean, no ship will pass or move forward unless some clearances have been given or they've been allowed to. But the problem is that there is, in Hindi, as we say, the total dadagiri today. And the Jungle Raj is prevailing on the seas as well.
Right.
So I think we'll have to have a strong posturing ourselves with our Navy being there.
Right. Sir, coming to the Middle East, the US and Iran have been negotiating for a long time now. Negotiations have been on for weeks now. Every other day, the US president claims that a deal is closer, but the ground reality, the reports that we get from the ground are very different. Now, there's been resumption of attacks by the Iranian side on the air bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, just last week. About 2 days back, there were more attacks from the Iranian side, and the US president has said, in fact, claimed that Iranians have downed one of their helicopters, and now a major retaliation is anticipated from the US side. In this backdrop, how do you see them coming at arriving at a deal? Do you think that this is going to stretch longer? When do you see this? Do you see an end to this any sooner?
Yeah, in fact, as I mentioned to you, I mean, I was hoping that by 100 days, and it was almost there. It's not there. But then we should not forget that there is also a third party to it.
Israel.
That is Israel, which does not want the deal to go through in the first place. And they understand it. I mean, they have their own security concerns, their own perception of security, perception against the regime. And also they think that if the completely Iranian nuclear program is not shut, that could bring some kind of parity. It may not be immediately, but subsequently, which is what they don't want, because they want the privacy in the region.
True.
And so they are not happy about it. So there can be any kind of, sometimes like even the Apache helicopter, for example, the Iranians said they have not downed it.
Right.
So you never know, I mean, who's done it. So that's another thing. But the Americans are at the same time continuing to attack.
True.
Because they have to show that they are a superpower, hyperpower rather, and they have to show that if their helicopter or any major asset which is just not attacking but which is just viewing the things,
Right.
but this is what happens in war. Like as Arakchi said that you should not be here in the first place.
Absolutely.
So when you are there, this happens. But right now, it looks to me that the United States, by these attacks or whatever it is doing, is trying to pressure Iran to expedite conclusion of this. This may have a negative impact. It may not have the desired impact. But at the same time, I hope that the good sense will prevail.
But sir, there have an important aspect of this also is the sticking points that remain. Now, one is of course the nuclear question. The second is the Strait of Hormuz and the sovereignty over the same. Given the fact that the Iranian supreme leader is in hiding, of course there is a huge level of mistrust prevailing between the two sides, and the US president's irreliable demeanor, if I may say so. Do you see that these sticking points will be addressed any sooner?
Shikha, the thing is that as far as the nuclear point is concerned, it was almost settled on 27th of February. First time Iran had agreed to many of the concessions that it had never agreed to before, including the inspections not only by IAEA but also by the Americans. They had also had agreed things. So nuclear file was more or less settled. It was a question exactly whether under what is permitted under the NPT would be allowed or not, and that I think that both sides had agreed. And for that we don't have to trust either the Americans or the Iranians. We have to go by what the Omani says. The Omani foreign minister has written a very good article in which he had very clearly articulated everything. Now, other thing is then came the new thing. That's the Strait of Hormuz closure. And as you know, the Iranians have been saying from June last year that if we are attacked again, these are the actions we will take. One is they will take out all the assets in the region, Gulf countries, Israel, and also close the Hormuz. Now they are also threatening to close Bab el-Mandab through the Houthis. Now, if that happens, that means nearly 60% of the trade will be impacted for the globally. So that means we are looking at a very great economic and financial disaster waiting to happen. And that is also a pressure on President Trump. Apart from his domestic ratings are pretty low, his public constituency, including the MAGA one, is not happy with him. They don't want to get dragged into a longer war. So he wants an off-ramp. And that is the only, I would say, is saving grace that he wants it even now. That somehow the Iranians will also see some reason in it and get to finish the deal as quickly as possible. I believe that most of the points have been agreed to. It is a question of some smaller things like the sanctions. Whether primary sanctions will go or not, how much money they will get. I mean, there are reports that
they want reparations as well.
Qatari and Emirati delegations were in Iran.
They were mediating.
To mediate. So everybody, the whole world wants it to stop. But only America is the one which can stop themselves as well as Israel.
Now coming to one of the countries that has been possibly with whom we've had the closest of relations, coming to Russia, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has made very important, significant remarks recently about the RIC and how its format in fact led to the the birth of BRICS. And subsequently we saw an interesting statement by the Chinese, who've also said that they're ready to work together with India and Russia. Are we seeing a revival of the RIC, which had been dormant since 2020, and after that we saw India and China almost collide at the LAC, which was a very difficult period for us as well. How do you see a revival of the RIC in future?
Well, incidentally, I was in Moscow those days when the Prime Minister Primakov came up with this idea of having a RIC, Russia, India, China trilateral. At that time, India was not that keen, frankly, because of our bilaterals with China. Of course, Russia is our most dependable, trusted partner. I mean, as a special, privileged, strategic partner, and more so under President Putin. This has happened, and Prime Minister Modi as well. But at the same time, if you think that even though there has been no summits per se, but there was a picture in the
SCO
summit that conveyed a great message. And since then we've been hearing it. Of course, the thing is that RIC got subsumed
In BRICS.
in the BRICS itself. So they are very much part of it.
Right.
But then having an RIC by itself or discussions does not do any harm. It in fact provides a closer collaboration. So it is quite likely, I tell you, it is possible that during the BRICS summit you might have a RIC summit also. It's quite possible that three leaders might just sit together because challenges are identical.
True.
And similar challenges for all the three powers. Of course, India-China relations need to really cross a lot of hurdles with regard to trust between the two countries, even though both sides are managing the relationship reasonably well at the moment. But there are sticking issues, fundamental issues, and China has to be sensitive about them. That's very important. Russians, of course, want that India and China should try to resolve their differences. So it's a good organization, but India has never been interested in any bloc mentality. No alliance kind of a system. But of course, multilateral groupings, trilateral groupings are very frequent. We are part of dozens of them.
Right.
And they serve their useful purpose. While the multilateralism at the global level is cracking, frankly. Yeah.
Right.
So I think that there can be some project like we have in IPSA, for example.
True.
So IPSA we are revived.
Right.
Right. So same way RIC could be also revived.
Can we say that this is in fact, the Russian effort or possibly the Putin effort to counter the Quad grouping that has recently sort of, made a revival of sorts after geopolitical commentators sounding a death knell to it repeatedly?
Well, we are also very much part of the Quad, and strangely this year we are also chair of the BRICS as well as the Quad.
Right.
Both. So that shows India's, I think, India is ambidextrous, as they say, in managing these kind of tides and be part of all kinds of groupings, irrespective of their focus or, I should say, the kind of
influence in their own regions.
Geopolitical connotations.
Right.
So, I mean, for United States, the Quad is been the containment of China.
Right.
For Japan and Australia also, it is to some extent the same.
Counter the China.
As far as India is concerned, despite all our differences with China, Prime Minister Modi at Shangri-La had very clearly spoken that it should be inclusive, but China must follow the principles of UNCLOS and freedom of navigation and free and open Indo-Pacific.
Right.
And that's precisely what we are saying now in the Strait of Hormuz. That's the policy, that's the international law. So as long as they follow that, that's perfectly fine with us. We are not there going to war against China. So that's the difference between India. And that brings India into a position of BRICS, where we are with all the countries, developing countries, with Russia, China, South Africa, and now 11 countries are the members, including Indonesia, which is the 5th, 6th largest economy also.
And now Bangladesh also wants to come in.
Pakistan wants to come in, a lot of countries want to come in. And there's about 20-30 countries in the waiting list.
Absolutely.
So why not? I mean, this is okay. I mean, that shows the dissatisfaction with the old system where unilateralism became the main discourse.
And West was possibly dominant.
They are dominant. They want to dominate even now because the financial institutions they still control. But at the same time, I think there are alternates are emerging.
Right.
So what we say is a non-Western alternative.
Right.
So this RIC, in my view, is not being seen in the perspective because India will not be a game for that.
Okay.
Given our policy of strategic autonomy, multi-alignment, I don't think we are going to be a part of a grouping. And that was precisely, I remember, in 2008 or 9 or whenever it was, 2002 actually. So when it started off, floated by Mr. and rightly so, because we were three major economies,
Right.
Asian economies, and Russia treated itself as Eurasian economy.
Right.
So that's why it wanted to be part of this. But it is driven by, of course, President Putin, and now China is also keen, India is also keen, but to collaborate to extent, but not beyond.
Right. We can say that President Putin or Russia may have their own reasons to ensure that the RIC, is intact and not really gets lost, in the huddle of other groupings that we have at the moment in the geopolitical order. But why is this unease or sort of difficulty to embrace it openly on the Indian side? Is it because of the mistrust that we still harbor for the Chinese because of what they've done over the past few years?
The thing is, there are two things in this. One is you have to see that what do you think it brings to the table.
Okay.
BRICS is doing almost the same thing. So that most of the multiplicity of various organizations
They're overlapping.
Overlapping the
Yep.
same kind of a thing. So you are not really getting much out of it. At the same time, if you really want to go on and have some kind of a bilateral project, so India is not keen on developing anything into a security alliance by itself, in that perspective. So any other project that you think of could be very well mooted in the BRICS or in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where we are also members.
Right.
So that's also, security issues are dealt with, counter-terrorism, everything in the SCO. The BRICS also has a counter-terrorism as agenda. So now you see that whatever is happening in SCO, you can see most of it is also happening in BRICS or in Quad and this thing. So eventually, what is it? It should be a more developmental kind of an agenda. Some kind of an alternative structures, financial or economic, or which is benefiting developmental dimensions. Those are very important. So if in RIC you want to do the same thing between the three countries, then it's a very different kind of a thing it will be. But what I look at RIC is, could be an important, good organization, because that time BRICS was not there. But now it's subsumed in BRICS. It has become center of the BRICS actually. One side you have B, other side you have S.
Absolutely, yeah. It's in the middle. So why is Russia, bringing this term again? Specific reasons?
You see, Russia, this is their initiative, number one. Like we are very sanguine about ISA,
right.
International Solar Alliance, CDRI, Global Biofuel Alliance. We have floated that. So obviously we were very passionate about them, right? Same way Russia has floated this. It is coming up with the EAU, its own, session. Eurasia Economic Union, it has its own projects. China has its own projects like the BRI. So when you develop something like that, you want to promote that to the maximum extent possible. And you consider that there is a merit in it, according to you, your own foreign policy.
Right.
But this is the policy from there coming also from a superpower point of view. Right. This is a geopolitical alternative from my side.
Okay.
For having India is a big economy. China is a big economy. Russia is a big power.
Just to send the similar message that the US does with the Quad.
That we can't be pushed around.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So clearly, there is much more to what meets the eye in the current multiplicity of not only the world, but the organizations that have developed, the platforms that have developed for countries to throw their weight around and also, sort of underline that they are the dominant powers in their respective regions, at least. This has been a very not only enlightening, but also a conversation full with a lot of insights that we had possibly not known, because we were not aware that you were in Moscow when the RIC idea was first floated. So clearly, we'll continue such conversations with Ambassador Trigunayat and several such seasoned diplomats in the future as well. This is me, Shikha Salaria, reporting from New Delhi for India Abroad. Stay tuned and keep watching.
Thank you, Shikha.